Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. I guess, I mean, the opening to the Olympics is today. I'm the only one apparently not watching and who doesn't give a shit. My friend messaged me, Russ, and said, yeah, the opening ceremonies, Spielberg is the one who directed it. I'm like, oh, okay. So when is the shark going to jump out of the sand and bite somebody?
All right. So, truth be known, I had 15 minutes to kill before coming on the show, so I turned it on, right? If Spielberg did that, he should quit the business. It made no sense. It went from some weird guy going up in a balloon to like going through the clouds. Then it became like this Beatles acid trip for a little while. And then all of a sudden the Minions were there, and it's like a 5-minute Minion movie, which makes no sense. It makes no sense for the Olympics. I love the Minions. I went and saw the movie, but like for the Olympics makes no sense. Then it's pouring there. So then they go to some woman who's standing up on like the top of a building somewhere in like a sleeveless gown, and it's pouring. Like she's got to be getting soaked.
Is it see-through?
It probably ended up that way. And just the whole thing was just a disaster. But the worst part is I have to say that NBC does not need to tell the audience what the U.S. diplomatic relations are with some of the countries that are floating by on the boat. The Olympics is supposed to be better than that. It's not supposed to be mentioning that. And it's supposed to be just, hey, everybody's equal here. We're all just competing and people are watching, and that's it. It doesn't need to get political. And I felt like that was the start of it, like it was going to. And I'll tell you who it was with. It was with Iran. And no matter how you feel about them, you've got to give them a fair shake, because these athletes aren't the ones you have a beef with.
Yeah, and here's
I didn't like that. I didn't like it.
Here's the boat with Iran, and on the bow is Ayatollah Khomeini.
No, but they were just like, well, the U.S. hasn't had diplomatic relations with them since 1980, and it's like, if you're 7 years old, is that someone's 8 years old watching this? Do they really need to know that right now? No, there wasn't.
It's educational, right?
It's not. They can find out on Wikipedia.
Well, this is. Well, see, I don't know. The funny thing was the NBC has just been bombarding everybody, Bill, with advertising, like on podcasts that I listen to. They had the commercial, the opening ceremonies are on Friday. It was but this was the hilarious thing. And I was doing yard work yesterday. I had my phone with the speaker on, and the ad comes on and it says, the opening ceremonies in Paris, the visually stunning with Mike Tirico. And okay, fine. I like Mike Tirico. Peyton Manning. I was like, okay, like what the hell is, and Snoop Dogg. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding?
That's funny. Now, typically most Olympics, whether it's winter or summer, I'll tune in for some of the events I'm interested in, and I'll watch some of the late night coverage, and then I tend to get into it a little bit as the Olympics go on over the weeks, but I check in, I check out, whatever. It doesn't really, I mean, so much gets made of it, but I don't get caught up in the hype, I don't think.
No, and the one nice thing that where I'm located is on our local cable, we get the Canadian broadcast, a couple of the Canadian stations, and one is CBC, so we get the CBC broadcast, and we obviously get the NBC broadcast. And I know that since Paris is only a 6-hour difference, I believe, so we're going to get a lot of the stuff live, and then like later at night, we're going to get, sort of the recap stuff, which is a lot better than it was in like Pyeongchang or Beijing, because the time difference, I think, is 11 hours, and you're never watching anything live. So right. It'll be better this way, but I don't know. And, it'll be about the same time in, Milan for the 2026 Winter Olympics. So it's not like we're going to be watching it in the middle of the night. Like I remember watching Dominic Hasek stoning the Canadians at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, I remember that.
Anyway, okay, let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, July 26th, 2024. Go ahead, Bill.
I'm Bill Meltzer.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
That was subtle, wasn't it? And I'm Michael Lagello, this is Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. We're going to build more regularly on the Buzzcast when he's available, but today we especially wanted him because the first half of our news is Flyers centric. I wanted to get your input, Bill, on the introduction of Matvei Michkov earlier in the week. He 3-year entry level deal, and I'll just bring up my reservation here. Like, we know he's extremely talented. We know he's only 19 years old. Now, he's 19 years old and he's played 2 almost full seasons in the KHL, but KHL and NHL are different. It sounds like it's going to take a miracle for him not to start the season in Philadelphia. But my question is, and we know John Tortorella, and we know in terms of like, he's going to want players to play the way he wants them to play. If he doesn't early on and he starts dropping him in the lineup, 3rd line, 4th line, then sitting him out, that, which he's done with players over the last couple of years, will this organization hesitate to send him to Lehigh to let him play significant minutes? Give me your impression on the whole situation.
I don't think there's much chance he goes Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
As you said, he played the last 2 years in the KHL. What his relationship will be with Tortorella, that remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Tortorella is who he is. He's not going to change. The thing with Michkov is that as talented as he is, and as much as he wants to fit in, all the rest of that, he's a strong-willed kid, and even in Russia, he'll push back if he disagrees with something. But the weird thing with Tortorella is he kind of likes that. He kind of likes when he gets some pushback. So it'll be interesting to see. And it's also interesting to see how long Tortorella will be his coach, because come next year, Tortorella, unless he gets an extension, is a lame duck coach next year. Right. He's the oldest coach in the NHL. He's the only coach in the NHL at this point who was born in the 50s. Every NHL coach was born in the 60s onward. So, John's pretty deep in his career, and he'd be the first to tell you that having a lame duck season in Columbus was a mistake. It was a mistake for him. It was a mistake for the organization. His teams tune those guys out. You don't have to listen to him. He won't be there the next year. So the Flyers have to make a decision as to whether they put some kind of succession plan in place over the next year,
right?
Or they commit to some kind of an extension. No one wants to waste a whole year. The Flyers are still in the process of trying to build a team that, that will be a contender for a playoff spot. That's their intention. That's what they consider the next phase. I know that there are people, they need to just bottom out and take a step back and do full rebuild. That's not happening, right? So then, where they want to get to is they missed the playoffs this last year. And whether they make the playoffs or not, they had 89 points this year. They want to be in that same neighborhood at least this year and move what they consider forward in other regards. So there's a whole lot of uncertainty, and one of those things that coaches tend to do, not just on Tortorella, is that when you hit those points, you rely on your veterans. You largely tend to rely on your veterans. We'll see where Travis Konecny ends up playing, whether he plays left wing or right, because he's played his off wing a little bit. Whether they end up on the same line or whether Michkov is second line. We'll see. And in terms of 5-on-5 play, so I think there's a lot of things that have yet to be figured out. My concern is people putting unrealistic expectations. He's going to come right in and be a 40 goal guy as a rookie and 80 whatever points, 85, and then just take off from there. I think you have to be realistic. I do expect him to have games where he makes a major impact, and I think he'll struggle at times too. That's just par for the course.
I think people have to look at, like with Connor Bedard, he was asked to play no defense in Chicago. He did nothing last year. Yeah. And that helped him get a lot of points. He's not going to be – Michkov can't do that in Philly. The coach doesn't allow it. So yeah, there's going to be an adjustment, and I wouldn't start him on the top line, even if he looked like he was ready. No matter what, it would be second line or third line just because. I think it's just better to do it that way, especially with who they're starting to play off. You really want to – I don't want to match him up with Connor McDavid and guys like that right out of the gate. I just think that would be a mistake. But, yeah, you'll see. You see how it does. It'll be interesting, like you said. But, honestly, if I put points on it, I think he'll have a similar year to Bedard. Maybe, right, Now, Bedard probably could have got more if he wasn't injured. He would have.
Yeah.
I'm going to say like 60, 65 points would be a great year. But if it's 50 points, I'm like, that's a good year too.
65 points, he's a Calder nominee. I mean, honestly,
he might
be. But Bill, this is the thing I'm curious about because obviously he is a high-end offensive talent. In terms of like who he fits with, Torts might say, well, I've got to cover up for his defensive inefficiencies and play him with Couturier. But in my mind, they should be playing him with Morgan Frost because Morgan Frost is a playmaker. He's a creative player. I think, speed wise, he fits more with Mishkov. That would be the move that I would make, but I'm not a coach. What do you think that if you had to read the tea leaves, what do you think they will do at training camp going into the season?
Well, first of all, you're preaching to the choir in terms of that. I think you ought to play with Frost.
Right.
He's your best playmaking forward. And honestly, Frost done this season past, but the season before that, once they stopped screwing around with him and actually put him in the lineup, he led the team in scoring the rest of the season. And last year started out once again yoing him in and out of the lineup because the year before he was only scratched once.
Right.
But he was scratched 10 times in the first half of the season. Couldn't get any rhythm. Constantly different line mates. When he finally went to Tortorella's office and he advocated for himself, and like I said, Tortorella actually likes confrontation. When Frost finally advocated for himself and was in the lineup regularly, for the rest of the season, actually wasn't scratched again until the final 10 games when everything fell apart for everybody. Once again, he led the team in scoring. I think there's something you build off of there, and just leave it alone. Stop tinkering. So I think that's the right guy with him. And in terms of the other the other winger, he's played a lot with Owen Tippett, and they have pretty good chemistry. I'd like to see them with Tyson Forster because he's so good on the walls. Good first forechecker, a big heavy shot from the flank. That's something to me, and a two-way guy as well. That's a combination I'd be interested in seeing. Mm-hmm. That being said, what I think will happen is I think he may start out with Couturier. They may even start him out with Scott Lawton, Yeah,
so, I can see Lawton or Hathaway being with him because he's going to do it like it's the old days, and he's going to worry about cheap shots and stuff. And it's like, I wouldn't play it that way, but he might.
Okay, the other news in Flyers land, Russ, the deal that the Flyers signed Travis Konecny to an 8-year deal at $8.75 million. The details of the deal, I believe it was the first 6 years are full no moves, and then it goes down to I think a 10 team no trade the last 2 years.
I think I saw 14. I think it was 14.
14, yeah.
Okay. Now this is thing, obviously with me covering the Leafs and covering the Sabres for various outlets, I as soon as something pops into my head, I think of, things that I'm familiar with. And based on the age and based on the stature of the player and based on their talent levels, as soon as I heard this 8-year deal and I saw the amount, Jeff Skinner popped into my head. Because he's 27 years old. Konecny is. He scored 30 goals 2 years in a row leading into this deal. He's in the prime of his career. He's a smaller, not a midget, but he's 5'10", 175 pounds. He relies on his speed and his edge work, I think, more than anything. He's a talented player. But halfway through this deal, I think it's going to be a Skinner effect where he starts to lose a step. Maybe injuries start to pile in. I don't know if this is a good bet long-term for the Flyers, especially coming off some of these deals that they have where, I mean, the Couturier deal doesn't look great right now with all the injuries that he's had. The deals that they've, traded away like Voracek and other Ristolainen, who is still on the roster. I mean, I'm a little surprised that they committed on the 8 years. And I have a lot of reservations. So Russ, you first, then Bill on this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I always think terms are killer. I know what the Flyers are doing with the AAV, but I would have paid them a higher AAV, and I would have bargained for, instead of 6 years, I wouldn't have gone with 6 years right away. I'd have been like, look, we'll give you 5 like everybody else, but if you want to take 6 years on your deal, hey, we'll give you 6 years of unrestricted, no move, and then you'll be fine. You won't have to worry about anything. But they had to give him those extra 2 years, or so it's like those are the 2 years you're always going to look at saying, Brendan Gallagher. You look at guys like that and you say, yeah, we see what happens. I in turn know, and I like Konecny. I think, look, I liked him in his draft year. I just knew he wasn't a center, and he's never been a center, and he's been a very effective player. I went back to the 2015 draft, and he's like 8th in points. Now the interesting part is Besser is like a goal ahead and 18 assists, I think, behind or 16 points behind, but he's played fewer games, right? So Besser's going to make more than Konecny like next year. Like Besser is that next guy, but Meyer and him have a similar deal, and Meyer is just a few points behind Konecny. Different players, and I didn't like the deal for Meyer. I like it more for Konecny than Meyer in the sense that I just don't think Meyer has a ton left, and that's why in San Jose I think they were kind of letting him just do what he wanted. Point-wise, he is not the power forward that he was in the start of his career. Now, for Konecny, he doesn't have to be a power forward, so that's great. But I do worry year 5 on what he's going to give. But, he's 8th in that draft. He's right around that money. I just would have given him more for less term. That's all.
Bill?
I would agree with much of that, and I do think Meyer was the basis for this contract. Yeah. Meyer got 8 years. Konecny got 8 years, right? Meyer got a little slightly higher cap hit. He got 8.8, and Konecny got 2.74, but essentially the same thing, right? You go for what's Meyer's career.
Yep, we lost a little bit.
It froze. Maybe on
the term. Oh, okay. I don't know where you guys lost me there.
You're back. No,
if you were explaining Meyer, go ahead and explain again.
Yeah, I was saying that Meyer got 8 years, Konecny got 8 years. Right. Meyer's career points per game is 0.71. Konecny's career points per game is 0.71. Both first round picks, 2015 draft, so same age. Now Meyer's deal, because the last contract expired first, ahead of Konecny, so his contract, this was year 1 of his 8-year deal. So his contract will expire 2 years sooner. That's a negative on the Flyer side of it. The positive being that in terms of cap percentage, including this year, it'll end up a lower percentage of the cap, just because the cap should continue to increase. My biggest concern, I completely agree, is the term of the deal, because it's essentially a 9-year commitment, right? He has the 1 year to go on his current contract, and then the 8-year deal kicks in. So it was really a 9-year commitment. Right. So it'll take him until he's 36 years old. I don't know that Konecny will be effective. 33, 34, 35, 36. We'll see. Right. We'll see how he is health wise. We'll see what talent you might be able to put around him. But the Flyers went into this offseason. It was either look to trade him, see what you get, or you re-sign him. Having this go deep into the season, we're either recouping what you can near the deadline, or potentially losing him for nothing. Those were non-options. So it was either extend him or trade him. I don't know how serious the Flyers were about exploring the trade option. From everything I've heard all along,
seemed to do it, honestly.
Yeah.
I'll just go on that, because I know that around Buffalo there was some interest. I mean, I don't know if let's just say, I don't know if it was from the team or if it was just sort of fans saying, well, Konecny's got a year left in his contract, and that's the type of guy that we could use. But there seemed to be a connection between Buffalo and Konecny. And then I think about a month ago, it seemed pretty clear that the Flyers were not going to trade Konecny and they were going to sign him to a long-term deal.
Yeah.
So that's where that went. Now the question I have extrapolating from Konecny, Bill, is does this mean that somebody like Joel Farabee, who's making serious money, is on the way out, or does this mean that are they completely disconnected and one doesn't have to do with the other?
Well, I think the Flyers know, and I don't think it's a secret, their needs are at center on the top of the line and defense. It's on the top of the defensive rotation. So I do think it's possible that you could see Farabee moved. He was very consistent in the first half of last season, and he struggled the second half. He kind of got in the doghouse a little bit in the second half. Large, to some extent through no fault of his own. He played in a. So I thought.
If you look at those last 10 games, who his line mates were, he still was only 2 points behind Tippett. And my whole thing, Bill, is Farabee had a bad year, but look how good Tippett's was. He had 2 points more.
Yeah, exactly. And he was so consistent till the All-Star break. So, he's already had 2 20-plus goal seasons. He was in the NHL at 19, which isn't always a picnic. And he still is just 24. So, while I think the Flyers should have their eyes and their ears open, and if there's a hockey trade to be made, you make it. He's not a player to me you give away, right? And then it would be finding a trading partner. But I think it is possible that he gets moved, and certainly Morgan Frost might end up getting moved too, if not right away. Possibly next summer.
So I want to speak to the fans for a sec, Bill. Sorry. Because what I'm seeing, and I understand this, it doesn't mean that it doesn't make you a cup contender, but what the fans are starting to notice is that with the Flyers drafts, they're drafting good players. Yes. Some are very good. Few are great. And so they're seeing other teams like with New Jersey, they've got the Hughes brothers and they got some flashy players. Mitchkov may be the only flashy player. So they see the Flyers giving a lot of money to Konecny, who is a Flyers star, but he's just a very good player around the league.
Yeah.
There's a frustration there, and it's
well, for sure.
And I sort of get that. I do.
Well, I do too. And although drafting at the top of the draft is no guarantee. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the guys who've been the Flyers hits in the draft for the most part in the last 25 years, they've all been pretty much late first round picks. Whether it's Simone Gagne, he was 22nd, Giroux was 22nd overall. I mean, Justin Williams didn't stay for long, but he was at the end of the first round. I mean, those have been the better guys that they've drafted. It just kind of worked out that way. So it's not that you can't find quality players later on. I mean, the ultimate example of that was Boston, right? Because Pasternak was a later first round pick. And Bergeron was a second round pick, and Marshall was a third round pick. So it can happen, but it requires a pretty fair amount of luck.
Charlie McAvoy was a mid first round pick.
Yeah. But he shouldn't have been. Like I talked about it.
No,
even McAvoy thought he shouldn't have been. Like
he shouldn't. He shouldn't have been. But I mean, that's part of the being.
He knew he was going to slip, and I knew he was going to slip, but he didn't understand why. Because I remember talking to him about this before the draft. I just feel like, it was just a weird thing. But
that's part of being fortunate when it comes to the draft. Yeah. I mean, the Sabres think they're very fortunate that Zach Benson slipped to 13. The Leafs think they're extremely fortunate that they got Easton Cowan at 28.
Right.
Now, we don't know if he's going to be a really good NHLer, but it looks pretty encouraging right now. Just want to touch on the 2015 thing because we're, obviously, and that links to Mitch Marner. Marner's got a year left in his contract. And then he's looking for an 8-year deal, or if he goes free agent, a 7-year deal. And he'll be 28, I believe. That's the scary thing is these guys are not going to be good at the end of these deals.
Yes.
If they're, like you've got Brock Besser, who's a free agent after this year. You've got Mikko Rantanen, who's a free agent after this year. Hanifin just signed an 8-year deal with Vegas. None of these guys, unless it's some miraculous thing, are going to be good at the age of 35, and they're going to be being paid big money. So that's what I think. That's what I think Toronto's hesitation is with Marner. And I think maybe that should have been a hesitation with Philadelphia when it came to Konecny, but they went ahead and they signed the deal, and maybe they got a little cap deferral because they gave the 8th year. But another high pick who, not from this draft, but from the following draft, Patrick Laine, got the all clear from the NHL in terms of being part of the Players Assistance Program. And now everything swings toward the potential of him being traded from the Columbus Blue Jackets. And like I wrote today on the website, the two big things, I mean, Bill, there's no questioning Laine's talent when he's healthy and when his head is right. He's a really good goal scorer. The problem is his head hasn't been right and he hasn't been healthy for long stretches throughout his career. But the health is one question, but the contract, we lost him. But the contract, Russ, he's got 2 years left at $8.7 million. And Don Waddell is going to probably have to eat significant money on that deal if he wants to get any kind of good return. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether Columbus is interested in eating $2 or $3 million for the next 2 years to get rid of Patrick Laine.
Well, I'll tell you this. Bill, by the way, I think his thing froze, so he's probably not going to come back on.
Right.
I think the issue here is that I think the Columbus media feel like once Laine's out of the program now and he sort of gets healthy, that Waddell's going to move him instantly. And I don't think that's going to happen, because if he tries to move him instantly, he's going to get killed on a deal. Like there's no deal right now out there for Patrick Laine. And I don't think Columbus ownership wants them to eat $2 or $3 million.
Right.
So I think you have to play him with the new coach and just see what happens to start. I think there's no other way. I mean, there really isn't. So you see what happens. Look, if he starts out great, hey, then you can start talking trade with teams, and maybe just before the All-Star break, you can get him traded. But right now, I just don't think there's a market for him, and I think they're going to have to just deal with it.
Well, I mean, the way that Elliot Friedman phrased it, basically it sounds like Columbus has given Laine and his representatives carte blanche to talk with any NHL team. Now,
this is like the old Carolina thing. Like they used to do that all the time in Carolina too. And how often did a deal actually occur?
Right, but the like say Neckish.
Right.
I don't think they really wanted to trade him, but they said, go ahead, go talk to Ed, go talk to people, and then come back to us if they're interested in giving us an offer that we deem as worth our while in terms of I mean, the problem here is Columbus wants to trade him, and I think he wants out of Columbus.
He does, but nothing's going to happen quick.
Well, I don't think anything's going to happen quick, but I think it's not. I think that if it's going to be quick, Columbus is going to have to eat money.
Yeah, I just think if I were running Columbus, I would do nothing right now. I would have him show up to camp when he's healthy. I'd have him prove that he could still play, and then I'll field offers, because right now you're going to get killed on a trade.
And what happens if he comes back and he plays like crap?
Yeah, well, then they're stuck anyhow. Like, it doesn't matter. Either way, you're stuck. But the point is, he's a super talented player, and you're a team that needs talent. The worst thing you could do is just trade him for futures and not get any talent back for a guy like that. Like, with the investment that you put in for Patrick Laine, you have to get some talent, instant talent back, or it's a complete organizational failure. Yeah,
Esmir saying the Islanders trade Pajot for Laine. It's like,
that's better than nothing, but I don't
think it's better than nothing. But Pajot, I mean, you're getting a $5 million Pajot who I think has 2 years left. It's for an $8.7 million Laine with 2 years left. And if Laine is healthy, that blows them out of the water. I mean, Pajot is a 15-goal third line center.
Yeah, I don't think Columbus is trading with the Islanders anyhow. Let's just be real.
Yeah. Finally, I saw this, and somebody in our group text had put in the Charles Barkley tweet regarding TNT, and this has an effect on the NHL. Right now, the report here was that TNT matched the offer for an NBA package extending from after next season. I don't know how long it was, but then the NBA decided to go with one of their other, I think it was either Amazon or one of the other outlets, because I think they see that going forward, like this might be the last contract with TNT, but if they go with Amazon or if they go with Apple, they know that the money, the coffers in terms of those outlets will be bigger and longer lasting. So they opted to go away from TNT. And remember, the NHL is linked to TNT and ESPN for the foreseeable future.
Right.
With the eyeballs not, and you could say, well, okay, now the NBA is gone. Now they're going to devote everything to the NHL. No, they were making a lot of money on the NBA, and now that that's gone, will they do? They're not going to devote lots of money to the NHL, which doesn't draw big ratings. So I think this is going to have a detrimental effect on the NHL's coverage on TNT.
No, I disagree. I think it's going to have a beneficial effect because I think they're going to pour their resources into the NHL and try and get more advertising, build more into that show, because that's their only thing now. They don't have anything NBA. And I know their hope is that, some judge is going to say you'll get to share it with Amazon. But from the way the NBA looks like, they want just Amazon. And that's why Barkley spoke out. So I actually disagree. I think this is going to help them.
Yeah, I don't see it that way because, like I said, one of the things I think, remember, all the cross-plugging in terms of promotion with
Barkley. You can still invite on Barkley. He's got no contract. He'll still come on.
No, I know that. But what I'm saying here is the NBA was such a money-making engine for TNT that like without that money-making engine, they're not going to be able to recoup that by putting more money into the NHL. The NHL, they'll get a certain amount of money with a certain amount of advertising, but whoever is advertising for the NBA on TNT is going to go where the NBA is going to go, which means NBC or Amazon or Apple or wherever the hell they go. So, ESPN has Major League Baseball, and I don't think the new NBA. I don't follow the NBA that much anymore, but no. I don't think the new NBA contract has anything to do with ESPN. I think it's NBC, Amazon, and Apple, right? Yes. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
okay. So ESPN, at least ESPN has the NFL and Major League Baseball to fall back on. Yeah. TNT has nothing other than the NHL. Yeah. So I don't know if that's good news for the NHL, but we'll see.
I got two more things. Okay. So Rick Dudley brought the Stanley Cup to Lewiston. That's really great because, again, Rick Dudley built so many other teams like the Blackhawks and never got to carry around the Stanley Cup because he wasn't on the team anymore. Right. So that's got to be great for him because that's really a lifelong achievement. And Mike,
first of all, I didn't know Rick lived in Lewiston, but it makes sense because he's constantly either at Sabres games and Leaf games, so that's sort of a middle of the road.
Yeah, that's a midpoint. And cool. Joe Bowen said that he and Jim Ralph are going back for another year. That's got to be the oldest, longest-running radio duo in hockey, maybe in sports.
Yeah, and now, based on what happened last year, and I didn't see the reports that must have just come out. They didn't travel with the Leafs. They traveled during the playoffs, but they didn't travel with the Leafs. So that means that they're going to do the 41 home games, and when the Leafs are on the road, they'll be doing it probably either from either a Sportsnet or TSN studio, or they'll be doing it from the press box at Scotiabank. So I don't know if they do it at the press box because sometimes Raptors games will, conflict with Leafs road games. So that's, I'm glad that they're back because a lot of people, I personally love Chris Cuthbert on the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast. He's great. But some people don't. Some people would rather listen to Bowen and listen to more of a Leaf-centric broadcast, but I'm glad to hear that. I know that we know that radio is unfortunately dying, but I think in this instance where Sportsnet and TSN both own the Leafs, they want a radio presence, and the radio stations are an important aspect.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. Look, he's Bowen should be traveling. They all should be traveling, but they're not going to spend the money. So it just doesn't make sense. Teams like the Flyers are spending the money. Here's an interesting thing, Mike. One last thing. So what if this season, like you said, hey, if Michkov has 65 points, he's a Calder candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if Cutter Gauthier has 68 points?
Then he's a Calder candidate too.
But
you're talking about like, well,
what if both of those guys are Calder candidates? How will the Flyers fan base react to that? Is my question.
I think they'll react fine if Jamie Drysdale has 45 to 50 points.
Right.
If Drysdale is hurt and he's struggling with injury as he has the last few years or a couple years in his career, then Flyers fans are going to be out for blood, especially if Gauthier is scoring like crazy in Anaheim. But
it'll be a storyline for this year.
Definitely. All right. We will be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For the departed Bill Meltzer, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.